Okay, so friends, in this quick refresher before the exam, and this session has helped so many of my past alumni to clear the PfMP exam with above target, and I hope this session will equally add value to each one of you here. And I'm 100% confident that each one of you will be uh, PfMP certified in your first attempt. That's my uh, promise to you, and I'm damn confident on those things. Yeah, so that's what I want to tell you. And friends, as you all have undergone my training, and this training has actually covered all the important concept which going to be tested in the exam. Okay, and as you all have gone through the third edition of the portfolio management guide, because that's an edition which is very closely aligned to the the portfolio management professional certification examination content outline. If you see the examination content outline for this certification, then you will see there also there's a 5 domains in the examination content outline, and the same domains are covered in the standard for portfolio management third edition. Okay, the strategic management, which has around 25% of the exam question weightage. The second domain is portfolio governance, that contains 20% of the exam weightage. Then the third domain, which is portfolio performance management, which also contains 25% of the exam question. The communication management contains 15% of exam question, and the risk management also contains 15% of the exam question. So 25 from strategic management, 20 from governance, 25 from performance management, and 15% each from the risk and communication management domain. Okay, so this is the exam weightage, and why see, PMI exam is more aligned to this examination content outline. Okay, now why I told you to refer to the third edition of the standard for portfolio management, because that standard is much detailed, and it has because of the format of the standard. The third edition is a process-based standard. It has the 16 processes and the process group and the knowledge area. And each process has, the characteristics called input, tools and technique, and output. Okay. So these, this is much detailed, when you will refer to the this standard or this version of the portfolio management guide, you will get much holistic understanding of the entire portfolio management concept. Of course, fourth edition is good. It's more principle based standard. So it's a very, if you see even the size of the standard is total content of the guide is 130 page, or and in that also actual content is less than 80-90 page, and most of the tasks which are there in the third edition, the same task has become more like a principles or a in the fourth edition of the exam. Maybe the capability and capacity management, value management, these became a domain in the the fourth edition. But the and that also some of the so tasks have taken a shape of domains and so on. So nothing have as a content wise, it is not that third edition doesn't contain any. Of course, few topic has been more detailed explained in the fourth edition, especially the capability management, capacity management, and bit about value management. The manage value process, which is there in the third edition, and the managed value became an entire chapter in fourth edition. So it has been, some more information has been provided. But if you understand what is portfolio value, why we should manage portfolio value, why should we maximize value, Friends, your fundamental concept will be test, or your knowledge will be test in the exam. Neither the input output will be you have to memorize. Okay, you don't have to. You have to understand that what are these processes, and these processes will be also tested indirectly. Indirectly basically means, uh, you know, the exam is not directly going to ask you what is the input for, you know, managing portfolio strategic plan, or let's say managing strategic change or developing strategic plan. They're going to indirectly give you some situation that, you know, you are working with analyzing the competitor, or you're analyzing the you know, your demand of bargaining power of your customer and supplier, and because of which you have introduced some strategic change. And to successfully implement the strategic change, uh, you know, what kind of you know, approach you will take. So something this kind of, they will just ultimately they asking about the process called manage strategic change. So normally they, by saying that, you know, they may asking you some kind of tools and technique. That means you maybe have to perform a gap assessment, you have to perform a readiness assessment, the stakeholder analysis. These are the three tools and technique for, you know, this process. So you know, if you know that you know, what is managed strategic change, what are the trigger for strategic change, and to deliver the strategic change, to implement the strategic change, you know, what are the approach you will take, technique you will perform, and what input you will need. If you can just apply your common sense and apply your experience, then this exam going to be much simpler. And let me tell you, friends, you know, this exam has a very high success rate as compared to the PGMP certification exam. As per me, I think so, more than 90 to 95% professional in the world, whether who have done training or who have not done training, they have attempted this exam and cleared in the very first attempt. Okay. And my own student, I have, you know, except one student I remember who could not clear in the very first attempt, and almost 99 people I have almost certified, and one of you will be my 100th participant, and very soon I'm reaching another important landmark, you know, to certify more than 100 people in the portfolio management certification professional. So, and I'm confident that, you know, all of you will be, because I know you have that portfolio management knowledge, and of course some of you may not be very, you know, confident and all those things, but don't worry, this is just an exam. And it happens, even if I will give some new exam and I will go, and those anxiety, those exam pressure, and remain calm, remain cool, and just believe in your you know, your knowledge, the effort which you have put. One thing you all have done good is you have done good effort to prepare for the exam, and that's what is in our hand. We have to ensure that we put our best effort, and let the result be you know, driven by our effort and our experiences of managing portfolio and portfolio components. So that's a just introduction. You know, no need to refer any other mock tests. I have given you few mock tests in the LMS and other study material. If you have done that, every single person who have certified, you know, he has done the same thing. And if they could, and trust me, friends, you are much better than some of the other people who have cleared the certification exam already. Okay. Of course, those people have their own commitment, their own effort, their own knowledge. You know, I don't want to compare one with the other. But yes, you know, I can confidently tell you that you know, each one of you are a good professional, and some of you have done already PMP, PGMP, and now this is will be your third PMI certification. Or even if you have not done, there's so many of my students who have directly taken the PfMP certification, and who have done much better than you know, who are not a PMP and PGMP, because I have seen even that, because the pressure on them is much less, and maybe they are more experienced, maybe they applied on the exam date the right approach. And so this is what we're going to talk about: the approach, the mindset, and some of the core concepts. Okay. Now let's jump into few quick refresher. I'm going to tell you in next half an hour or next 30-40 minutes, and I will request if you just raise your hand if you have any question during rather than directly interrupting in between. So raise your hand if you have any question around any topic which I'm going to talk about. Okay, and then that's the way we will I will respond to you. Time is sufficient. Before that, I want to tell you time is sufficient for the exam, and I've seen most of the people didn't find time is a constraint. 4 hour, which is 240 minutes. You have to attempt 170 questions. I think so. That's going to be time is not going to be a big challenge for you. Okay. So now let's talk about, friends. What is more important is we have 16 processes in this third edition. Your focus should be on these 16 processes. Okay. Don't worry about which process group they are. It is easy, frankly saying, by the way each process has been named, it is easy to know which process group they are, first of all. But even if you don't know which process group they are, that's absolutely fine, because exam is not asking any direct question that which process is part of which knowledge area. Knowledge area is also called domain, the portfolio management domain, because strategic management domain, that means strategic management knowledge. The portfolio manager must have the strategic management knowledge. The portfolio manager must have the governance knowledge. The portfolio manager must have the performance management knowledge and communication and risk management knowledge. So these are the core competencies which are being evaluated in the exam, whether how well you manage organization strategy, because organization strategy and objectives are the input for the portfolio which you are managing as a portfolio manager. So strategic management basically means how well you able to understand the organization strategy and objective, and how well you able to design a solution, some solution through a portfolio, and deliver the value through this solution. Solution could be combination of some product, service, any result, any knowledge, along with the the business changes which you have to make in the portfolio and in the current operational state of a portfolio. So strategic management is, again, remember, portfolio life cycle is an ongoing life cycle, whereas project and program are temporary. Throughout the portfolio life cycle, you may have many projects will be initiated, terminated, closed, and same thing with program, and there will be ongoing operations work which will be performed as part of the portfolio. During this ongoing life cycle of a portfolio, you may see many strategic changes will be introduced. And I hope you remembered why strategic changes are introduced. We spoke about some of the triggers of strategic changes. We spoke about Michael Porter's 5 forces, that the organization leadership team, strategic team, they continuously evaluate competition in the market. So because of competition analysis, because of substitute of a product, because remember, friends, whatever product portfolio or a service portfolio which you are managing to deliver a value for organization, objective, there may be always substitute, because the market is changing, innovation is happening. So there will be substitute for your product, and because of the analysis, substitute analysis, that could lead to strategic change or new entrant in the market, or maybe bargaining power of your vendor is their power increasing, bargaining power of customer is increasing. So this is the Michael Porter's 5 forces which influence strategic changes throughout the portfolio life cycle. So you must able to have this strategic management knowledge, and you must respect and understand that these changes are definitely going to happen, and as a portfolio manager, you're going to take these changes, then you're going to evaluate the changes and assess the impact of these changes to the overall portfolio objective, which is derived from the organization strategic objectives. And there are strategic changes happens because of the pestle model. The pestle model means because political change is happening in the environment, economical changes occurring in the environment, social changes happening, technology changes are happening, because of legal and regulatory changes. The pestle analysis is also introducing strategic changes in the organization. So strategic management knowledge is very, very important knowledge. The portfolio manager should have. He must understand that how to manage the organization strategy and objective for his portfolio, and how to successfully implement that strategy and deliver the objective behind that strategy which the organization has defined during their strategic planning meeting. Governance knowledge, friends, what is governance? Governance is very important. Governance means taking decisions, providing oversight, authorizing audits, conducting phase gate reviews, handling escalations from the portfolio team or portfolio component team. So as a portfolio sponsor or as a portfolio governing committee, you have to handle so many escalations. You have to frequently conduct phase gate reviews. These phase gate reviews are also called decision gate reviews. You have to authorize audits, internal or external, but ensure that the audit committee is not part of portfolio management team, because if audit committee is part of the team, or if they work within a portfolio, then the audit make no sense. Then the audit is like a health check review. Ensure the audit are from an external perspective, and if possible, it should be, outside you should have expert auditors who are not part of the organization. Forget about not part of portfolio. So these audits are very important governance mechanism to monitor the portfolio processes, whether is there any deviation from the processes, any tools, templates, or finances, different aspect of audits, financial audit, process audits, quality audits, and all these type of audits are. So as a portfolio portfolio governance, these are some of the governance responsibilities. So you must, and portfolio manager himself has so much of governance responsibility, especially from the component perspective. he is the head of the component governance. He have to provide governance support for program, project, subsidiary portfolio, and the ongoing operations work which is being performed in the portfolio, because he is the portfolio manager. So portfolio manager perform both portfolio governance responsibility and portfolio management responsibility. Performance management knowledge is very important because performance is influenced by, as we said, because of the strategic changes, because of the environmental impact, and all the risk in the emergent risk and all those things. So performance management continuously evaluate the performance of the portfolio. You must keep in mind, I hope you remember the processes. Of course, develop performance management plan, but the two important processes from the aligning process group, which are very important: managing performance of your resources by performing supply and demand analysis. So manage supply and demand is a very important process of performance management knowledge area. And another important process of performance management is manage value, manage portfolio value. These are the two processes from the aligning process group. So as a portfolio manager, you should continuously manage value, manage supply and demand. We'll talk about these processes in bit more detail as part of performance management knowledge or competency of a portfolio manager. But understand that, it's a very, apply your common sense logic. Again, I'm saying, friends, no need to memorize that performance. How will you, and what performance? The value performance, the resource performance. The resources are not only the human resource, but the material, the man, machine, material, money. All these are the resources, because these are shared resources. These are organization resources allocated in your portfolio. So you must manage these resources and maximize the value from these resources. We'll talk about what are the techniques to perform, manage supply and demand, especially the capability and capacity analysis is a very important technique. Manage capability, manage capacity, how to manage it. I'm sure you know much better than me. But briefly, we'll talk about what the standard says. And communication management knowledge is very, very important, friends, because even in the PMBOK, you learned that even project manager spends more than 90% of his time in communicating with the stakeholder. Communication is very, very important. You must understand what is the method of communication, model of communication, medium of communication, channel of communication. So during the planning stage, you will develop the communication management plan. And then you will manage communication throughout the portfolio ongoing life cycle. Remember, there is no closing phase in the portfolio life cycle. And I hope you remember the stages and the phases of portfolio life cycle. Of course, the life cycle concept have not been explained in third edition of the portfolio management guide. But friends, this is what one area which I want you to keep in mind, because by knowing what are the stages of the portfolio life cycle and what kind of work you do in each of these stages will build your confidence, and it will be value add in the exam as well. So the stages of portfolio life cycle is the initiation stage, the planning stage, the execution stage of a portfolio, and the optimization stage. And of course, the operations component, the operations will continue as a component of a portfolio. We'll talk about which process is performed during which stage of a portfolio life cycle when we will discuss every process briefly. So understand these stages and don't try to memorize the activities performed from the 4th edition, but just understand what are the, and this session going to be, I think so, then it will not require for you to look into the standard as well. So keep in mind what are the stages in the portfolio life cycle. You can also call phases, portfolio life cycle phases, and how these processes are performed repetitively throughout the portfolio life cycle. These processes are performed repeated multiple times, iterative process. Keep that in mind, because if these small fundamental things have been clear, then the exam going to be much easier. So communication knowledge, risk management knowledge, and I don't have to tell you, friends, why risk management is important at portfolio level. Because at portfolio level, you set the structure of risk management, which will be even derived at the component level. So what are these? And risk management starts from the initiation stage until the ongoing life cycle. Throughout every single stage, you're going to perform this risk management activities. And it's a simple activities. That means identifying risk, analyzing risk, creating a risk response plan, implementing a risk response plan, and monitoring and controlling the risk. These are the sequential steps. We'll talk about some of the tools and technique and this process. So these are the 5 domain or knowledge which a portfolio manager should champion. Of course, he should have the other knowledge of change management, the resource management, the quality management. These are all supporting activities or the knowledge, but the exam is focused on these 5 knowledge areas. Let's talk about, now you know what are the 5 knowledge area. Now you know the stages in the portfolio life cycle: initiation, planning, execution, and continuously optimization. Let's talk about the processes and how these 16 processes are managed in a portfolio, and why are we performing these processes. Let's understand, does it make sense to perform these processes? How repetitively you have to perform these processes? So raise your hand if you have any question on any such process, any such tools and technique which we're going to briefly talk about. The first process, remember, the portfolio manager is assigned during the initiation stage of a portfolio. the portfolio sponsor, one of the key responsibility of a portfolio sponsor is assign the portfolio manager. And if the portfolio sponsor not able to identify and assign right portfolio manager, that's a first failure of a portfolio. Remember, who is accountable for portfolio success? Is the sponsor who is accountable for portfolio success. And this is the one reason why he is accountable, because he appoints the portfolio manager. Of course, he will be supported by the PMO. He may closely collaborate with the PMO, and PMO must recommend a good portfolio manager to manage a strategic portfolio in the organization. But the decision, remember I told you in my training, PMO cannot take decision. PMO is not a decision-making role in an organization. The decision-making role is a sponsor. So you may get a recommendation from the PMO, but the decision you have to take, PMO may give you multiple options for a portfolio manager to manage a new portfolio. And this is what happens. Probably you may not know in your organization. This is the same way happening, which is outside the initiation stage of a portfolio, which probably you may know or you may not know. That depends. But this is what happens. Selection of a portfolio manager sets the tone for a portfolio success. The other important responsibilities of a sponsor. Remember, this exam is only based on 3 roles. You will not see many other roles. The question is framed from the sponsor, the PMO, and the portfolio manager. These are the 3 roles. And if you know what are these 3 roles, what are their critical responsibilities, then your things will become much easier for you. The sponsor is accountable for portfolio success. And his core responsibility is identifying, selecting, and appointing a right portfolio manager. Another important responsibilities of a portfolio sponsor is providing resources, including funding and other infrastructure resources for the portfolio management. And he takes decision in a portfolio. The sponsor takes decisions. He provides resources. He appoints portfolio manager. And these critical responsibility makes him accountable for success, because these are the most important. All the decisions throughout the phase gate reviews are authorized by the sponsor, whether approving a strategic change, whether approving a new portfolio component during the the phase gate review or stage gate review. So because sponsor takes all the decisions, because sponsor appoints the portfolio manager, because portfolio sponsor is responsible for providing resources for the portfolio, whether he secure resources from within the organization or whether he secure resources from outside the organization. Because you may have all of these funding and other facility, other material equipment. It may be from outside the organization, so internal resource, external resource, whatsoever, but it is the responsibility to ensure that the portfolio is properly resourced to deliver the value for the organization strategy and objective. I hope you know what is the sponsor's role, and of course there are many other responsibilities of a sponsor which we may discuss and which I have already explained you in my training. as I said, escalation, issue escalation, risk escalation. And I hope you know one common risk response strategy is called escalate. Positive risk, negative risk, there's a response strategy called escalate. And where is this risk are being escalated? Of course, from component team to portfolio manager or to portfolio team, and from portfolio team to the sponsor. So sponsor is the highest level of escalation in the escalation matrix, is the highest level of escalation for the portfolio. And this one more responsibility makes him accountable for the portfolio success, because he handling all the risk escalation, issue escalation throughout the portfolio life cycle. So remember these three roles listed down, create a small mind map, listed down what are their important responsibilities. Remember, sponsor is a governance role. He will not perform a management. He don't have any portfolio management responsibility. His 100% governance role. Whereas portfolio manager and PMO may perform based on certain context, based on certain situation, both PMO and portfolio manager. Of course, PMO should not be performing the portfolio management responsibility. A better structure of a PMO that he also perform only governance responsibility and support the portfolio manager and the portfolio sponsor throughout the portfolio life cycle. But there are certain situations or contexts in which the sponsor may ask PMO to directly maybe start controlling the portfolio or directing the portfolio. Remember the three structure of a PMO. I hope you have learned it and you have remembered it, what I told you during my training. The supportive structure of PMO, the controlling structure of PMO, and the directive structure of PMO. Especially in directive structure of a PMO, where PMO will start directing day-to-day portfolio management activities to the portfolio team and portfolio stakeholder. Directive structure means micromanagement of portfolio. The involvement level of PMO is highest in the directive structure. In controlling structure, the involvement is medium, and in supportive, the involvement of a portfolio is a low level of involvement of a PMO in portfolio management activities. So I hope you know what is PMO and what are the core responsibilities. Let's quickly discuss the core responsibilities of a PMO. Friends, the primary responsibilities of PMO is standardization of organization portfolio management processes, portfolio management tools, portfolio management templates, portfolio management matrices. Standardization, ensuring that every portfolio and portfolio component follow a standard processes which has been defined for portfolio management, project management, program management. These are the processes which will be defined, optimized by the PMO. And portfolio manager should continuously optimize these tools, these templates, these processes, and these should be the primary responsibilities of a portfolio management office, rather than start controlling the portfolio and portfolio component, rather than start directing the these are not. But if PMO start directing and controlling, then his core responsibility, which are optimizing the processes, designing new tools, new templates, and training. Training is a very important because PMO should build competencies, should deliver continuously maximize the value by providing this support to sponsor and portfolio manager. Yes, PMO provide supports to sponsor and portfolio manager both, and of course to other stakeholder and to component team and so on. But primarily at portfolio level, the portfolio sponsor is a support function. So training, the PMO should build competencies. The PMO should ensure that organization has skilled resource. So building, we said capability building, ensure that project manager can take program manager role. In due course of time, program manager can become portfolio manager, and portfolio manager can become at chief executive level, can take a role of a sponsoring the. So that's a key responsibilities of a PMO to build competency. Whenever organization needs a key role, they don't have to look outside the organization. If organization have to look outside such strategic role, again, that's a failure of a PMO. Because even if you hire your CEO or a next level of vice president who is a portfolio managing one or more portfolio, because these existing resources, human resources, they know the organization culture, they know the organization structure, they know the organization stakeholders, policies. So PMO should ensure that the resources are competent, they are ready to take a next level of challenge. So these are some of the PMO responsibility: supporting, standardizing, optimizing the processes, and so on. Suresh Kumar, go ahead, please.
Sir, I mean, so progress reports, right? I mean, component reports, component progress status. That's again a responsibility of PMO, or if any strategic change happens in the portfolio, obviously it is communicated through the portfolio manager. But what role PMO plays here, again, in communicating with the project and program managers?
See, communication should not be a primary responsibility. It should be, remember I said, Suresh Kumar, is a support function. Ideally, PMO should be supporting. Of course, some strategic decision, because PMO is a subject matter experts. They have experts within the PMO team. In a situation, in a context, PMO should take a important communication related responsibility within the portfolio. But primarily, communication is not a PMO responsibility, Mr. Suresh Kumar. It is the component team. There have to be, proper communication role and responsibility should be planned in the communication management plan. Remember, if PMO start communicating to the stakeholder, again, they will be controlling and directing. That's not the right structure, Suresh Kumar. Only in a situation where some strategic communication, many times, Suresh Kumar, when we hiring a strategic role or firing some strategic role, only such communication may be because they know the competencies of communication. In that situation, when consider that we have to fire a portfolio manager because of his incompetencies or because of his bad performance of a portfolio, that time PMO may take a role of communication in a portfolio to communicate the portfolio component team and stakeholder that, the portfolio manager, whatever is the best way to communicate. So there are specific communication only which should be managed, which you should understand. And this is all sponsor will direct in a situation that what kind of communication should be managed by the PMO. Of course, maybe some strategic changes that may be communicated, because remember I told PMO is a governance function. So PMO may communicate new strategic changes to the portfolio manager instead of sponsor. That can be, so some specific communication only should be handled by the PMO. They should not be, otherwise all the tactical operational work which is happening in the portfolio, performing, providing information update, status update, governance decisions update, all those things may directly be performed by portfolio manager to the portfolio team, component team, and so on. Indranil, go ahead, please.
So Kailash, when you said PMO is involved in the training, so do they actually deliver the training, or they enable like scheduling the training, making sure who is there and all these things? What is their exact role in training?
No. They may not deliver the training directly. They may or may not.
Okay.
See, if they have some functional knowledge, because they are the subject matter experts, they are the functional experts. But if there is any specific technical training is required, let's say cloud training, Java training, or project management training, it depends that, whether they hire internal somebody from the team, or maybe some experts, training consultants from outside the organization. So primarily, they, as I said, they have to build the competency by training and mentoring continuously the portfolio management team. How they will do it, that depends, Indranil, based on what is.
There is a direct question, assuming that in ABC company a training session is being organized for portfolio. Who is responsible for delivering the training? And if PMO is an option, if PMO is an option, portfolio manager is also an option. Which will be a right?
First of all, this is, there is no, the context is not clear. You cannot just say who will. Of course, all can deliver training. So you can, see, Indranil, first of all, I will tell you very, bluntly or very explicitly that, don't understand that, the PMO's responsibility is to build competency and, organizing training, or rather, I will say delivering training. You could say organizing training, or whether it will be delivered by somebody from a portfolio management office, or somebody from, they will organize some, because there's a training consultant, they are training experts. Even in, let's say, EY, you have PMO structure, but tomorrow they may call me to deliver the portfolio management training to the some group of people, okay. Correct. which I already do. Even in last week I finished portfolio management training for a Middle East based organization, where and this was the second batch of training which I delivered for their employee. So it does not mean that they do not have internal competencies, but they are all have they find it is better, it may be more effective. So there are regions. Of course, PMO will deliver training, portfolio manager will deliver training, and there will be external training, and there are different form of training, this virtual training, classroom, physical classroom training, and many such large organizations, including your organization, has so many tie-up with that Skillsoft, maybe Harvard Business, that portal where, or even LinkedIn Learning. Many organizations give free access to LinkedIn, paid access to employee, and they recommend go to LinkedIn and they assign courses to them and ask them to get certified. So these are different way in the need. Remember the objective. Who delivers training, that is not the responsibility, or that's not the purpose is building the competency in the need. That is what the PMO responsibility, through training. Perfect. Or through any other means. That's what is more important. Okay.
And there was another question in the mock test that regarding designing of KPIs and approving the KPIs. Okay. So that question, I think PMO designs the KPIs and it's approved by the executives. So
Absolutely.
my question is, I mean, if PMO defines the KPIs, won't that needs to be, what would be the KPIs PMO can propose? But shouldn't the portfolio manager has the final say of, okay, this will be the KPIs which we should measure on?
Absolutely. See, Indranil, as I said even some time back, maybe it just missed into that flow completely, maybe from all of you. See, defining these KPIs, standardizing the KPIs, of course, portfolio manager have to customize the KPI based on the unique need of a portfolio. But there are some standard KPIs for every portfolio.
Got it.
Okay. So defining those standard KPI, which are, remember, these KPI are based on balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard is one model which is used to define the performance matrix of a portfolio. It's a global framework. Balanced scorecard is to define the performance matrix, the matrices, however you pronounce it. So based on the balanced scorecard, and balanced scorecard is called a performance management model, you can call it. Defining the matrices or the KPIs or the portfolio success criteria, these are all at a standardized at the portfolio. Of course, there are some specific portfolio measurement criteria will be there, and of course that will be communicated to the portfolio management office, that we are also going to evaluate these criteria. But the standard criteria basis which the comparison among portfolio will be happening, those criteria are primary responsibilities on which the portfolio evaluation going to happen at the sponsor level. Those criteria are going to normally standardized by the PMO in the organization. Is that okay, Mr. Indranil?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
So that's a PMO and portfolio manager role. As we said, it's like a hybrid role. Hybrid role means he have to perform portfolio governance and portfolio management both. But one of the framework of PMI I read, portfolio management activities are more like a governance activities than a management activities. In the entire portfolio management, the governance activity dominates more than the management activities. Because portfolio itself is the governance of projects, program, subsidiary portfolio, and operations work. And using these components, the organization is implementing strategic changes and realizing continuous business value by operations component. So projects and program are the enabler to implement strategic changes, whereas operations is where actual business value will be delivered. So if you sit back and relax, and if you just ask yourself, and if you brainstorm with yourself, you will find the entire portfolio management framework. I'm not saying the only PMI framework. I'm saying framework which is applied in any organization. It may not be any PMI or Excelos. We have different PMI. We have different portfolio management, and whatever is your unique framework to manage your portfolio. I hope you all will be realized, and if you ask this question to yourself, and I hope you will get answer to that question, that portfolio management is more about governance than about management. Of course, there are many management activities portfolio manager have to perform, developing the strategic plan, the management plan, and and the other activities which we will discuss. But more importantly is, even the portfolio manager have to, his maximum time is spent in governance of the portfolio goals and objective. Do you agree with me, Mr. Ravindra, that even as a portfolio manager, think it yourself, you are a vice president, you are the portfolio manager, and do you think how much time you spend in doing portfolio management activity vis-a-vis you spend time in governing the portfolio goals and objective. Do you agree with me, Ravindra?
Yeah, absolutely, Kailash. It is more of a governing role rather than a management role.
Absolutely.
As far as PMO is also concerned, I do agree that standardization of templates and a continuous optimization of these standards is the prime responsibility of the PMO. And as a portfolio manager, yes, you have more governing responsibility. This is what I feel also, rather than a management responsibility. So whatever roles we are discussing as of now, whether it is PMO or portfolio manager, as per me, more of a governing role than us. There may be little management role as well, but more of a governing role.
Absolutely. And friends, now let's quickly talk about, now we know the entire portfolio framework, we know the roles and responsibility. Let's quickly brush up the 16 processes. The first process is develop strategic plan. Now, you don't need to memorize which process group it is, but easy tips is any develop and define keyword. Develop strategic plan, develop charter, develop portfolio management plan, develop communication plan, develop performance plan, develop risk plan. And there are two process names starts from define roadmap and define portfolio component. So whenever you see develop and define, they are part of defining process group. Okay. So no need to memorize, even it is not important, because process group is just a group of related processes. The process group has no meaning in actual portfolio management. What is more important? The processes are important, and which stage of a portfolio life cycle these processes are performed, that is important. Of course, the knowledge area is important, that this process, what knowledge you need to have to perform this process, the holistic knowledge of. So more important is if I have to tell you the priority, the most important, at least for passing the exam, is understanding the 16 processes. What are these 16 processes? Why are we performing these processes, especially their output? And you don't need to memorize it. You need to understand the concept. Exam is not going to test your memory power, and there is no direct input-output question in the exam. Maybe not more than 1 or 2 questions you will see in the exam where it will directly ask you. Of course, there will be indirectly all the tools and technique they will ask. Indirectly, the input and output they will ask. So if they're asking indirectly with some scenario, your memorization will not help. If you have only memorized these processes and their input, output, tools and technique, then you are not going to clear the exam. But if you have understood the processes, because there will be a lot of situations they're going to create to test whether you have really understood the process, that what's the need of this process in the portfolio management. If you have understood that, then you're going to pass the exam. And that is why my students do better in the exam, because they understand the importance of these processes in the portfolio management to deliver portfolio objectives. Friends, one more thing I would like to tell you, which I have also told you during the training. Remember, portfolio deliverables and portfolio management deliverables are completely different. What is portfolio deliverables? why we are authorizing a portfolio to deliver what? We are authorizing a portfolio and committing the organization resources in a portfolio to deliver organization strategy and objectives. So organization strategy and objectives is the portfolio deliverables. Now, what is portfolio management deliverables? Portfolio management deliverables are portfolio strategic plan, portfolio charter, portfolio roadmap, portfolio management plan, and portfolio itself. So 5 key deliverables which are mentioned in page number 39 of Standard for Portfolio Management, 3rd edition. The 5 key deliverables of portfolio management are, and you may see 15 to 20 questions on the content of these 5 key deliverables, which are given in page number 39. I'll repeat the 5 key deliverables. First key deliverables of portfolio management. These are not portfolio deliverables. Portfolio deliverables are organization strategy and objectives. And portfolio management deliverables, the first management deliverables is portfolio strategic plan, which is delivered during the initiation stage of the portfolio. Even the portfolio charter and portfolio roadmap, which is the 2nd and 3rd deliverables of portfolio management, all these 3 deliverables are delivered during the initiation stage of a portfolio life cycle. The portfolio strategic plan, portfolio charter, and portfolio roadmap. In the initiation stage or phase, and all of the 3 deliverables are part of strategic management knowledge area. Because these are the strategic documents. These are the strategic documents referred by the strategic team for the portfolio governance. Remember, all the decisions taken by the sponsor or any portfolio governing committee are done using these 3 deliverables: strategic plan, charter, and roadmap. And this is the same thing which we learned in the PGMP also, especially Ravindra and Indranil, you are a PGMP certified as well. The same 3 strategic document which we learned in the program management also. And these strategic documents are referred by the strategic stakeholders such as sponsor and the portfolio governing committee or portfolio steering committee to govern the portfolio management throughout, to govern the portfolio deliverables throughout the portfolio life cycle. And that is why they are part of strategic management knowledge area. Your sponsor is not going to refer your portfolio management plan or a subsidiary plan to perform governance or to take decisions. They're going to refer the roadmap, because roadmap is a strategic direction for a portfolio sponsor. Roadmap will give direction to the sponsor that how the portfolio is being implemented to deliver organization strategy and objectives. We'll talk about roadmap in detail. The 4th important deliverable, which is called portfolio management plan. Now, this is part of governance knowledge area. But remember, this is governance. Who will use portfolio management plan for governance? The portfolio manager. So portfolio manager going to use portfolio management plan for governance of the portfolio. Portfolio management plan is not a governance document for portfolio sponsor. For them, strategic plan, charter, and roadmap are the governance document for governing the portfolio objectives, for portfolio deliverables. The portfolio manager going to refer the portfolio management plan for governance of a portfolio. Because portfolio management plan defines portfolio. It's a how to plan. How to means it will define how the portfolio team will perform various portfolio management activities, tasks, processes. So all processes, policies, procedures, matrix, communication plan will have communication matrix, communication model, communication method, communication channel, communication processes, communication templates. Similar way, risk management plan will have risk management model, risk management threshold, risk management template, risk management tool, risk management processes. The performance management plan will have performance management model, whether you are using earned value management model or any other standard model to manage performance, performance tolerances, performance management processes, performance management tools. Primarily, PMIS is used to manage performance. So if you see, PMIS is a tool and technique to manage value, to manage supply and demand. Because PMIS is an important tool to manage the performance of a portfolio. Remember, these three plans, performance plan, communication plan, and a risk management plan are a subsidiary plan of a portfolio management plan. And a portfolio management plan is an integrated plan through which the portfolio manager is going to perform governance, the day-to-day portfolio management and portfolio governance. That's the fourth deliverables of portfolio management. The last deliverables is portfolio. And portfolio is defined during the initiation stage. What is portfolio? Portfolio is a structure or architecture of a portfolio. All the portfolio components are part of this portfolio. You can also call it is a portfolio scenario. Portfolio is a portfolio. You can also say it is a component mix. All the portfolio component mix are part of this portfolio. So you can call a component mix, or you can call a component structure, or you can call a component architecture, or you can call a portfolio structure. So these are the 5 deliverables: portfolio strategic plan, portfolio charter, portfolio roadmap, portfolio management plan, and portfolio itself. Suresh Kumar, go ahead, please.
So that means, right, define portfolios at the initiation stage, right?
Absolutely. Suresh, do you agree that you have to define the portfolio in the initiation stage, and even portfolio will be authorized also in the initiation stage? Suresh?
Got it, sir. Got it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because the very purpose of initiation stage is defining a portfolio and authorizing a portfolio. And remember, Suresh Kumar, I know why this question came, because you are confused between the process group, define, align, and authorize. Friends, please understand, these are just a process group. All the 3 process groups, whether define, align, and authorize, one or more processes from each of these 3 process groups will be performed in every single phase or stage of a portfolio life cycle. You define the portfolio during the initiation stage. At the same time, you optimize the portfolio also, and you authorize the portfolio also. You mean sponsor. Because your portfolio will never be authorized during the initiation stage if the defined portfolio is not optimized. You cannot say your sponsor that I will do optimization of a portfolio after approval. They will say no. And ask yourself, if you are a sponsor, put yourself into the sponsor seat for a time being, because you are also sponsor for many portfolio components. So portfolio sponsor, you have to present a portfolio and optimize portfolio for authorization. You cannot say that I have defined a portfolio, but this portfolio I do not have confidence, or this portfolio is not a optimized portfolio, which we're going to do progressively, as we elaborate. The sponsor going to say, no, first you give me an optimized portfolio, then only I will authorize it. So Suresh Kumar, all of these process group, even aligning process group processes, and every single processes may be performed during the initiation stage. Let's talk about the first process, develop strategic plan. Using the strategic plan, you are defining the portfolio structure. Remember, most important element of your portfolio strategic plan is the structure of a portfolio. That what kind of portfolio you will have. And even you have to identify the past component which are part of this portfolio structure. And this is what also written in page number 39, which I told you. The key, remember these 5 key deliverables. What are the key elements of each of the 5 key deliverables? You will be able to answer more than 15 to 20 questions. The portfolio manager, when portfolio is being initiated now, the portfolio life cycle has begun. At that time, he's going to define the portfolio structure and going to present the portfolio structure, and at the same time he have to optimize the portfolio to ensure that the portfolio will definitely get authorized. And while defining the structure, he also have to manage risk, he have to manage information, he have to manage value, he have to manage demand and supply. Of course, he have to optimize the portfolio and maybe manage some strategic changes which is happening during the initiation stage of a portfolio. So that's what I said. Don't get confused between the 3 process group. I will tell you, just forget about what process group you have in the portfolio management. What I taught you during my training is understand the integration between the processes. Understand what are the 16 processes and how they influence each other. Develop strategic plan will be certainly be influenced by high level risk. And I hope, Suresh Kumar, you will agree, initial risk management, initial information management, demand and supply management, and value management. What value your portfolio will deliver, manage value, you have to present via the strategic plan during the initiation phase. So you're also going to manage value in the initiation phase or a stage. And even the authorizing and controlling process group processes, which are only 2 processes, let's say provide portfolio oversight. When you're developing the strategic plan, the sponsor and the PMO will provide you oversight to develop the strategic plan. You are not going to develop the strategic plan in silos all alone, because that plan will never get authorized or may not be the best plan if you do not collaborate with these initial stakeholders. So even provide portfolio oversight process, which is part of authorizing and controlling process group, even that process is performed during the initiation stage. And even authorized portfolio, once you present your strategic plan, the strategic plan is nothing but the business case or a strategic case of a portfolio. Using the strategic plan, the sponsor and the portfolio governing committee is going to take decision whether they should authorize the portfolio or not. So during the initiation stage, they're going to perform phase gate review. There are multiple phase gate reviews going to happen. It may not be possible that in very first phase gate review, your portfolio going to get authorized, because such decision may have to authorize a portfolio. They may ask multiple time changes to your strategic plan, because business case, strategic plan is like a business case of a portfolio, which is not going to get approved in one go. There's so many iterations, so many reviews going to happen during the initiation stage. And when the portfolio sponsor is confident that this is the best structure of the portfolio and this is the optimized portfolio, and this also have very good risk, the risk, though the portfolio has a risk, but we also have risk strategies, then only the portfolio going to get authorized. So defining process group process, aligning process group process, and authorizing and controlling process group processes are all going to be performed in every single stage or phase of a portfolio life cycle. Give me a thumbs up, friends, if you have understood this concept clearly. So now you know what is portfolio strategic plan. It is a strategic plan like a business case or like a strategic case of a portfolio, through which the decisions are going to happen during the phase gate reviews in the initiation stage of a portfolio. And remember, what is the input to develop portfolio strategic plan? Is the organization strategy and objective, because that is what is the portfolio meant for. The portfolio deliverables is organization strategy and objective. So when you're developing the portfolio management, portfolio strategic plan, which is the first deliverables of portfolio management responsibility of a portfolio manager, the portfolio management first responsibility in the portfolio life cycle is develop the strategic plan. Of course, you're going to look into the past component in the inventory of work. Look into the inventory of work to see if some of the past work can be useful for your current, and it happens most of the time because organization portfolio are not completely different from each other. Many times they are extension, one portfolio is extension to some other portfolio, some identical products and services in every different portfolios. Take an example of Apple. Apple also have iPhone, MacBook, and other many component are used across the portfolio. Even in the banking portfolio, the saving bank portfolio, the current account, checking account, trading account, most of the component of these different account portfolio in a bank, they have similar component. They don't reinvent the wheel by doing duplicate of work, reinventing the wheel. So they use the, any work they have been done in the past that can be reused. So that is why this inventory of work is an important input. Of course, we're not going to discuss the portfolio process assets, organization process assets, and enterprise environmental. These are the common input and output which are performed for every initiation and planning phase activity. You must evaluate your environment, enterprise environment, or enterprise, or you can also call organization environment, one of the same thing. Evaluate what environment you are operating, internal to organization, external to organization, or to enterprise you can call. Because your strategic plan, as I said, will surely be impacted by internal and external factors, environmental factors. And even changes to the strategic plan are because of these environment. Throughout the life cycle, the business environment, the enterprise environment is changing. And because of the change in the environment, your strategic plan is also have to change, portfolio strategic plan, because organization strategy is changing. Whenever the organization strategy is changing, your portfolio strategic plan has to support that strategic changes. If your portfolio management plan or portfolio strategic plan is not aligned to the organization strategic plan, then your portfolio will be killed or will be terminated. And this is what is this technique called strategic alignment analysis. Means evaluate what changes happening into the organization strategy. What are the goals and objectives have been changed? What are the triggers for the change? Whether it is an environmental influence or whether it is a, any analysis, or in a board meeting, some decision has been taken based on some experiences and so on. Whatever is the reason for strategic changes or change in the organization goals and objective, you have to perform strategic alignment analysis to ensure your portfolio solution, your portfolio is delivering value to the organization goals and objectives. And also there's a technique, of course, strategic alignment analysis, and there's a technique called portfolio component inventory. And I told you the better name should be inventory analysis. You must analyze the inventory, and every organization, if it is a mature in portfolio management, so they may have a such inventory of all the work they have done in the past, or repository of all the work they have done in the past, so that this work can be reused in whenever the new portfolio is being authorized or chartered. This inventory of work is your organization process assets only, or here we will call portfolio process assets. The component inventory, all the past project, program, operations work, they are all part of portfolio process assets. But it is explicitly mentioned for this process, develop strategic plan, because when you are in the initiation and you're trying to justify the portfolio for authorization, you have to look into the inventory of work explicitly. Of course, you will look other portfolio process assets such as past experiences, past way the strategic plan has been developed, and what work has been done in the past similar portfolio. All that will be coming from the portfolio process assets. The third important technique is prioritization analysis. The prioritization analysis, yeah, even in the initiation stage of a portfolio, when you're developing the portfolio management plan, see, you may not have all the component identified at this time. The purpose of prioritization analysis in the initiation stage is to develop the prioritization model, to present the portfolio prioritization model to the sponsor. And this is the important element. Along with the portfolio structure, the prioritization model will be part of your strategic plan. This is the key element of the portfolio strategic plan. Remember, I taught you what is the prioritization model. That means the prioritization model should define all the different categories of a portfolio component. But what kind of component? Maybe process improvement category, financial return category, operations category, maybe legal and compliance category, customer satisfaction, because there are many projects in the portfolio ongoing life cycle which are done to deliver value for customer, improving customer satisfaction. So you have to define these categories. And for each category, you have to define the unique evaluation criteria component, because each category will have one to many component. Financial returns category or financial category may have 10 component, 20 component, may not be active at all the time, or they may be past component, planned component, future component, current component. So each category will have many components. Each category will have its unique evaluation, and or you can also call prioritization criteria. And each criteria may have different weightage, different weight. So every criteria may not have equal importance for that category. So this is your prioritization model, which you have to present, that how will you prioritize your portfolio? How will you optimize your portfolio throughout the portfolio life cycle? Of course, this model will be progressively elaborated during the planning stage of the portfolio. But initiation stage, you have to do some high-level work. Your sponsor going to ask you this model, that how you're going to optimize the portfolio, how are you going to prioritize the portfolio components, and so on. So prioritization analysis during the initiation stage is performed to create this prioritization model. And this, friends, there are many questions on categorization. One element of the prioritization analysis and developing a prioritization model is categorization. You have to create categories. You may see 4 to 5 questions on portfolio categorization, because the categorization helps in optimizing the portfolio, balancing the portfolio. And I hope you agree with it. And there's a process called define portfolio component. Of course, PMI is saying define portfolio, but as I told during the planning stage, when you're defining more component, one of the tools and technique for that process is that once you define the component, the immediate step is whatever component you have defined, you have to categorize. You have to categorize the component in the respective category. So that process, define portfolio process, which ideally the better name should be define portfolio component, because at the planning stage, you are creating the up-to-date list of portfolio component. That time you have to categorize the portfolio once you define the component. Even for that process, inventory analysis, portfolio component inventory is a tool and technique. Once you define the component from inventory or from all the elicitation techniques such as focus group, brainstorming, interviews, workshop, whatever is your technique to define the component. Once the components are defined, then they have to be categorized. And then the weightage ranking and scoring technique have to be performed to prioritize them and further to optimize them. So I hope you know what is strategic plan. Once you present the strategic plan, then your portfolio charter will come next. Again, it is an initiation document. Charter is developed during the initiation stage. Who develops doesn't matter. It can be developed by portfolio manager or portfolio. Ideally, portfolio charter is a standard template. PMO may provide you the charter either to sponsor, either to portfolio manager. Once you have a strategic plan, the strategic plan is the input for the charter. All the elements such as portfolio goals and objective, portfolio structure, portfolio prioritization model, portfolio assumptions, portfolio constraints, all these things will be authorized via the portfolio charter by the portfolio sponsor, because sponsor has authorization power. So portfolio is defined, portfolio is optimized, portfolio is authorized during the initiation stage, and charter is the authorization document. And then the roadmap. Roadmap is a third process. Now, why we need roadmap? When you already have a strategic plan, when you already have a charter, which already defines the structure model. But friends, roadmap is a very, very important strategic document. Again, it's a strategic document developed during the strategic management knowledge area, during the initiation stage of a portfolio. Because this gives direction to the portfolio stakeholder, to the portfolio sponsor, that how you're going to implement the portfolio. Roadmap defines milestones of a portfolio. Roadmap defines milestone in order of chronology. Chronology means in order of sequence. Sequence in order of time. Roadmap is a graphical document, and that is why it is widely used for governance, because governance becomes easy by looking into such strategic document which tells you what are all the milestones, when the milestone will be performed, what is the order of the milestone in which they will be performed, what is the interdependency between the milestone, what is the cost and benefit required to deliver the milestone. And if all these things can be visually seen, then how better it will be the governance of a portfolio. And even communication with the stakeholder. This roadmap is a very vital tool for communicating with the stakeholder to foster their support for the portfolio objectives. So charter may not, of course, charter may have timeline, charter may have cost benefit, even the strategic plan may have. The roadmap tells you the exact milestone through which the strategy will be implemented, and at what milestone, what value will be delivered to the organization. That is why it has become a strategic document for sponsor to govern the portfolio and to communicate the portfolio strategy with the stakeholder. And using the roadmap, you can identify gap, whether milestone has been delivered or not delivered, why it is missed, because it defines interdependency. Remember one tool and technique called interdependency analysis for developing a roadmap, because interdependency could be a factor for prioritization of a component. how each milestone is dependent on other. Remember, there's a dependency, finish to start dependency, finish to finish, start to start, start to finish. These are the 4 types of dependencies. So the milestone may have, some milestone may start to start together. Some milestone may have finish to finish. Some milestone will have finish to start. And some milestone will have start to finish dependency with each other. Also, each milestone, how much cost required to deliver the milestone? What is the benefit or value will be realized by the milestone? So that cost benefit analysis of a milestone is also performed. And the last technique of roadmap is prioritization analysis, because roadmap define the milestone in order of priority. Of course, the cost benefit factor and the interdependency factor is considered while prioritizing the portfolio milestone. But there are many other factors may also be considered to prioritize the milestone. So that's a roadmap for you. It gives you a trajectory. Roadmap gives you a trajectory. It gives you a direction. It gives you a path. What you're going to follow to implement the portfolio strategy and objective, which are derived from the organization strategy and objective. And once your roadmap is done, then you will move into the planning stage, and there you will develop the integrated portfolio management plan along with the subsidiary plan. I already told you what is each of the plan: performance plan, communication management plan, risk management plan. I also told you each plan will have various processes, performance management processes, policies, tools, techniques, templates, which I already told you in this session. All of these plans will be integrated. And one more thing, there's no sequence in which plan you will develop. It's your cognitive experience, that's a cognitive integration. None of the plan can be approved in silos. The integrated plan will be approved by the portfolio sponsor. So no matter which plan you develop before other, they will be approved in one single go. When a holistic and integrated plan is presented, and plan is an extension to roadmap. Roadmap will only define milestone, but plan may go detail into activity, task level, or even work package level. You may have a portfolio WBS, though the standard will not say that, but yes, portfolio management plan will have portfolio WBS. And I hope you remember the key component or key element of the portfolio management plan. It is part of the governance knowledge area. So using this plan, portfolio manager is going to do day-to-day portfolio management and portfolio governance. It has a governance model. It has a prioritization model. It has a change control model. How changes are controlled? Because portfolio life cycle, you will see many strategic changes, many tactical changes. How the changes will be controlled, how the changes will be managed, that model, change control model, prioritization model, governance model, risk management model, communication management model, performance management model, along with processes, policies, tools, techniques for managing risk, for managing communication, for managing performance. All of these things will be part of your portfolio management plan. And as I said, there's one more important process in defining process group, which is define portfolio component. Remember, PMI is saying this process name is define portfolio. But as I already told you, portfolio will be defined as part of strategic plan in the initiation stage. Now, at planning stage, you have to identify and prioritize the portfolio component. This is the same thing which I told you during the PGMP. In the program management also, program components are identified and prioritized during the program planning stage. Similarly, portfolio component, which are projects, program, subsidiary portfolio, or operations. These components are identified and prioritized during the planning stage. Of course, some of the components during the initiation stage may have been identified by doing inventory analysis, and during the initiation stage, one of the output of developed strategic plan is a portfolio. There the portfolio is defined, and portfolio, whatever output you have defined as part of strategic plan, that portfolio is authorized via the portfolio charter. Now in the planning stage, you're going to update the portfolio by doing more detailed component identification, categorization, and prioritization and optimization. So more thorough work, more detailed work you're going to do now. So in the planning stage, you're going to define the portfolio, and the output of this process is also called portfolio update. So when you're defining the portfolio, you're not going to update. When you're going to actually define the component, then you're going to update the portfolio with the new component. And tools and technique, I already told you, portfolio component inventory, because you have to look back to the portfolio component inventory for analysis to see if you could get more components which have already been done in the past or being performed at current time in some another portfolio. Also categorization, second technique is categorization. Once you have defined the portfolio component, then you have to categorize them. Third, you have to perform the weightage, ranking, and scoring technique, which I have already taught you. So look into the recorded video which I have shared with you, because there may be some 3-4 questions on those weightage, ranking, and scoring technique. Single criteria. There is no single criteria, but multi-criteria scoring technique, multi-criteria weightage ranking technique. You may see questions there. Now, once your portfolio management plan is approved, your portfolio is updated and final. Of course, you know, the portfolio plan will change because planning and execution is overlapping. Remember, even the stages of a portfolio life cycle are not sequential. It is not that once your planning phase is approved, your plan is approved, your component is approved. It does not mean that you're going to follow a waterfall model. You're going to follow an iterative model, in agile model of ensuring that when you executing the portfolio, when you get more information, because of progressive elaboration, whenever you do more detailed work, knows more stakeholder, get more knowledge, you may proactively go and try to optimize your portfolio to see that you can maximize the value. So during the portfolio execution stage, you may see many strategic changes, because during when you executing the defined portfolio component, whatever portfolio component you have defined, you're going to execute in the execution stage in whatever order they have been mentioned in the portfolio roadmap, because the order of priority of the component will be there in the portfolio roadmap. So you have to execute the component as per those priorities. But because of the strategic change, you may add a component, update a component, terminate a component. So your roadmap and portfolio management plan may be updated because of these changes happening in the execution stage of a portfolio. And remember, managed strategic change will also change your portfolio strategic plan, because it's a strategic change. They are not tactical change just to do the corrective actions or preventive actions to manage the performance. If it's a tactical change, your strategic plan and charter may not get changed. Because of tactical change, only your roadmap and portfolio management plan will change. But whenever any strategic change is approved, whenever your strategic change, because strategic change will maximize the value for the portfolio. So your strategic plan have to be changed. Your revised value have to be authorized via the charter. Your roadmap and of course, roadmap and portfolio management plan will be changed whenever your portfolio will be updated. Strategic plan will be changed. This is a very important concept. Whenever any strategic change is being approved, all of the 5 deliverables will change. Portfolio management deliverable, portfolio strategic plan, portfolio charter, portfolio roadmap, portfolio management plan, and portfolio. But whenever any tactical change are approved, tactical change are just a correction to the performance what has been planned. If you have a negative variance, because of negative variance analysis, you may have to do many corrective actions, preventive actions to prevent the performance pitfalls. Because of that, your strategic plan, your portfolio value may not change, but you have to protect the value. We already told why strategic changes are done. Listen to this video again. The trigger for managing strategic change I told. Let's talk about the technique, gap analysis. Remember, whenever any strategic change is being initiated in a portfolio, the purpose of the strategic change is to maximize value. You have a new value, you have a new vision for your portfolio. So there's a current state of a portfolio before strategic change, and there's a new to-be state of a portfolio which the organization expects after the strategic change is being approved and implemented successfully. So you must know what is the gap between the current state of a portfolio and the to-be state of a portfolio because of the strategic changes. So that gap analysis have to be performed. And whenever any changes, you have to see the gap. Because the purpose of strategic change is a new to-be state of a portfolio. The current state which has already been chartered before the strategic change will be different. But after the strategic change is approved, that's why I said even your charter will be updated. Because it will define the new value, maximized value will be approved via charter, authorized via charter. So friends, one more technique which is very important. Of course, the first technique is called stakeholder analysis. And I hope you agree, whenever you are managing strategic change, you have to perform stakeholder analysis. Because changes, whenever you are evaluating such strategic change, tactical change, stakeholder analysis is important. And for every strategic change, you have to create a business case. Every strategic change will have its business case. And this change business case only will become input for project. Because change will be implemented by project and program within the portfolio. So when any strategic change is introduced, you have to develop a business case for the strategic change. And via the business case, you have to justify to the sponsor whether this is a good change or a bad change. And what kind of structure change we're going to make in the portfolio. Are we going to add a new project or a program? Are we going to modify existing project or a program? Or are we going to terminate an existing project and a program? This is the outcome, or I'll say output of the managed strategic change. You have to prepare a business case. When the change business case is approved, that will also impact your portfolio structure. Of course, your key deliverables, portfolio management deliverables, all will change. And portfolio structure is nothing but the portfolio itself. And whenever the strategic change, as I told you, the processes are integrated. Whenever you're managing strategic change, You have to manage risk also. And if you're not managing a risk, your change is not going to get approved, or maybe the change going to deliver negative value, business value for the organization. Because strategic change may introduce new risk in the portfolio. You have to identify what are the risks which will be uncovered as we performing the strategic change. You have to manage information, because to manage strategic change without managing information by doing stakeholder analysis, the stakeholder will provide you information to take, decision whether the change is good or bad, whether they're supporting the change or they're opposing the change. Remember, I explained you the technique called Levin's force field analysis, Levin's model of force field analysis. For every strategic change, you have to analyze what are the forces which are supporting the change, what are the forces which are opposing the change. Of course, whatever model you know, whether Levin's model or any other model which is dominant in your organization, important is you have to analyze the strategic change by managing risk, by managing information, by managing demand and supply. So every strategic change may require some new resources. So you have to manage demand and supply, that what type of resources are required, what quantity of resources are required to manage this change. So manage supply and demand, manage value. This process also will be integrated by manage strategic change. Because how the strategic change will impact the value of a portfolio, that you have to manage. And if strategic change is maximizing the value, then the change has likelihood of getting approved. An optimized portfolio. As I said, whenever any strategic change is approved, either a component will be added, removed, or modified. So I hope you could visualize the integration between the processes, whether it's a planning process, whether it's a, now in the execution stage, whether it's a aligning process, group processes, there are process level integration happening here. One more technique is called readiness assessment. Readiness assessment is a very important technique, friends, because many a time we implement a change within the scope, within the schedule, within the cost and other constraints, in spite of which the change do not add value for the organization, for the portfolio, because we have forgot to do readiness assessment, whether your stakeholder, whether your customer, whether your market is ready for such changes, because sometimes the changes may be too premature or maybe too late, where other competitor has already done similar changes and now market is not required similar change. So you have to perform readiness assessment, whether it is the right time to make such strategic change. It may be strategic change for your organization, but it is not a strategic change for the end user, for the customer, for the market, because your competitor has already introduced such change long back. Or maybe you are too early to implement some strategic changes, which still customer do not have full trust on such new solution. So these are the three techniques: stakeholder analysis, gap analysis, readiness analysis, optimized portfolio process, which I already told you. The second strategic, the aligning process, group process. I told you optimized portfolio is not happening only, even in the initiation stage, you have defined the portfolio and optimized it. In the planning stage, you have definitely optimized, because In the planning stage, you have updated the portfolio by categorizing it, by weightage ranking, and you have optimized it. But even your portfolio is optimized during the initiation and planning, even in the execution stage. Whenever you are performing strategic changes, in the execution stage, there are many strategic changes are happening, because of which you have to again perform the optimization of a portfolio. So the trigger for optimized portfolio process is strategic changes, or whenever you're managing risk. As a result of risk management activities, you may have to optimize your portfolio. Maybe whenever you're managing supply and demand, consider that you are managing supply and demand, because you see there is a scope of better balancing between supply and demand of resources. Then as an output of that process, you also have to optimize the portfolio. And remember the technique which I told you, the graphical analytical technique in the form of risk reward bubble chart. Risk reward bubble chart is a very important technique to see the scope of optimization in your portfolio. To create your risk reward bubble chart, evaluate the portfolio for optimization based on the different factors which I told you. Maybe size of a component, maybe investment of a component, type of component, risk reward. So analyze this, because bubble chart is very popular and very exhaustive technique where you can evaluate multiple factors simultaneously to evaluate the portfolio optimization scope. The next technique is manage supply and demand. Now, primarily we are focusing on resources, supply and demand here. And remember, I taught you minimizing both unmet demand and unused supply. Unmet demand means, minimizing unmet demand means that there is a demand for your portfolio products, but you are not able to meet them. The demand is unmet. And I told you, even in many times, the demand for portfolio management training from some reason, but because of my bandwidth, I'm not able to meet that demand. Because my training schedule is normally more aligned to the India time zone, the America and Canada time zone. Many people from Australia and the other region, the time zone, because of there are many factors because of which the demand I'm not able to fulfill, because I don't have capacity. Remember why the demand is unmet? Because of capacity issue. So whenever you have unmet demand and you want to minimize the unmet demand, you have to increase your capacity. And there are many ways to do capacity management. Maybe properly sequencing your work, properly scheduling your work. There's simple steps. Many times the solution is very simple, friends. Apply your management knowledge. Not necessary that you have to hire new resources to minimize the unmet demand. Many times the solutions are much simpler than hiring new resources. And I can tell you so many techniques to minimize unmet demand without adding new resources. Because adding new resources means increasing cost. So you can do fast tracking. Fast tracking, which will not increase the cost, but by which maybe you can manage some of the unmet demand. as I said, sequencing, resource leveling, reprioritizing your schedule. These are all the elements of capacity management. And I am sure you know more better technique than me. And you are already doing it in your organization. Probably you don't know that this is the technique you are performing. But I'm 100% confident each one of you are doing capacity planning, capacity management to minimize unmet demand. And if there is unused supply, if you have unused supply means where you have resources, but there is no demand for your product and services, then don't fire them. To minimize the supply or capacity, don't fire your resource. That's not the best way. How will you minimize unused supply, unused capacity? By increasing your demand. How will you increase your demand? There's your demand management processes. So don't fire your resources to minimize your unused supply. So the supply and demand management, and ask yourself, why are you managing supply and demand? To maximize value. The very purpose. And even if there is no external trigger to perform, it have to be proactive process. You have to perform. Of course, every time there is a strategic change, you have to perform this process, without which strategic change cannot be executed. But even if there is no trigger from other processes, take a proactive measure to perform supply and demand, because by which you can maximize the value for the organization. And this tools and technique called capability and capacity analysis. I already told you how some tips to manage capacity, even capability. Many times to minimize unmet demand, just by increasing the capability, rather than hiring new resource, by training the people, train the junior level people and make them experience to minimize the unmet demand. By appreciation, by reward and recognition, by motivation. Apply all of your learning, the Maslow's theory, the Hutchberg theory, the expectancy theory, and I hope you know all these theory to build capability. Capability management theories, you know. The hygiene theory, there's so many theories are there to manage resources. And these are globally best recognized theories to manage your resources, manage the capability and capacity. This all you have learned in your PMP days. And even if you are not a PMP certified or you have forgot, you are applying this knowledge in your day-to-day life, in your portfolio. Just be cognizant about it. Just think that you are very experienced people here, friends. Only thing, just realize that you have that experience, build your confidence, because this exam is simple exam. And you are the best people to qualified portfolio management professional. We don't have much time in this. This is just a review and flashback session. Otherwise, we have discussed so many things in our training to build capability, to manage capacity, and avoid overutilization and underutilization of our resources. This is called capability and capacity analysis. Have a balance. All these discussion, look into the recorded videos where I have explained you all of these things. The next process is manage value. manage value, and one technique which will see 4 question minimum called efficient frontier. To manage portfolio value, listen to the training video. Remember, why are you managing value? To contribute maximum to the organization strategy and objective. When will you manage value? Every time the strategic change is happening, every time demand and supply is process is being executed, every time you're managing risk, every time you're managing information, optimizing portfolio, this process will be performed simultaneously. So efficient frontier, remember, those portfolio will be efficient, which will be on the frontier curve or closer to the frontier curve. And if more than one portfolio is on the frontier curve, then how will you decide which portfolio you will select for prioritization? Based on the risk factor. This is what I told you, prioritization analysis, when we were talking about roadmap. Risk is an important factor to take prioritization decision. So if you have 2 portfolio which are both on the frontier curve, if your organization has more risk appetite, more risk tolerance, then you will select high risk and high reward portfolio. And if your organization has risk, if we call it risk seeker and risk averse. Risk averse means the organization who avoid taking more risk. So if your organization is risk averse, then you will select that portfolio which is less risk and less reward. And remember the plateau state. Plateau state is where beyond a certain time in a portfolio, the value will never increase. The value will start diminishing returns. So recognize when the portfolio is being saturated. Recognize that you are continuously making more and more investment in the portfolio, but in spite of which your aggregate portfolio value is not increasing. The value maximization portfolio, cost reduction portfolio. I have told you all of these scenarios. Look into the efficient frontier technique and the explanation in the video which I have shared earlier, the training videos. You may be able to answer 4 to 5 questions on the efficient frontier. Next process, manage information. Remember, friend, most important process may not be from the exam perspective, but from the portfolio management perspective. What is manage information? Collect information, analyze information, store information, reuse information, disseminate information. And information could be in a different form. Risk information. Stakeholder requirement is an information. Environmental information. So the different information which we have to elicit, analyze throughout the portfolio life cycle. And for every single process, whenever you're managing strategic change, you have to manage information. Whenever you're optimizing portfolio, you have to manage information. Whenever you're managing supply and demand, you have to manage information, and so on. The tools and techniques are simple, friends, to manage information. Stakeholder analysis, communication requirement analysis, communication method, or PMIS. PMIS is the best tool to manage information. And these are all logical. I have not memorized any of this process. I have not memorized any input, output tools and techniques. Because this is the way I manage my portfolio. Portfolio management information system, because that is an information management system, that will be a technique and tool to manage your information. Manage risk. The last process from aligning process group. Managing risk will start from the initiation stage, planning stage, execution stage, optimization stage of a portfolio life cycle. And I don't have to tell you what is manage risk. Manage risk means identify new risk, analyze existing risk, ensure your risk response plan is proactively implemented. Don't wait for risk to occur. Whenever you have identified a risk, ensure that the risk is avoided, the negative risk is avoided, mitigated, or transferred, and positive risk is exploit, enhance, or shared. Of course, escalate. I already told you risk response strategy is called escalate. If you cannot manage, escalate it to the sponsor or accept it. If you cannot do anything, just accept it. Either a negative consequences or a positive consequences. But when you're accepting a risk, create a contingency reserve. There's an active acceptance and there's a passive acceptance, which I taught you, and I hope you remember that. In acceptance strategy, for both is a common risk response strategy for threats and opportunities. But in acceptance, also there are two types, active acceptance and passive acceptance. Active acceptance strategy for threats and opportunities means you create a contingency reserve. You don't have any plan for it. If risks occur, you will use the reserve to manage that. That's called active risk response acceptance strategy. Passive means you even don't want to put a reserve. That's a passive accept strategy. That means there's no even reserve available for you. So listen to my training video where I have explained in detail all of these: negative risk response strategy, positive risk response strategy, common risk response strategy, and how to monitor and control risk. All of these part of managing risk process. The last two process from authorizing and controlling, which we repeated so many times. The first process is authorized portfolio. And authorized portfolio will happen during the initiation phase, because portfolio will be authorized in the initiation stage via the portfolio charter. And there will be a governance model who will authorize the portfolio. There's a process, authorization process. Who will authorize the portfolio? What are the documents required to authorize the portfolio as an input document? What time during the phase gate review, decision gate review? All this process will be part of your governance model to authorize the portfolio. Portfolio component will be authorized during the planning stage. Strategic changes may be authorized during the execution stage. During the optimization stage, also new component may be authorized. So that's an authorized process. Authorized means activating the component, activating the portfolio. And the last process is provide portfolio oversight. Remember, both the processes are part of governance knowledge area. Authorization is a governance responsibility. Sponsor will authorize your portfolio and portfolio component and strategic changes. And they will also provide you oversight about change in the organization strategy. so you can better manage the strategic change. Oversight means they will provide you oversight during the phase gate reviews by handling escalation, by taking decisions, by providing strategic changes, by monitoring and controlling, by authorizing audits. These are the activities to provide oversight to the portfolio team. And that is why this technique, important technique for this process is meetings. I hope you remember the tools and techniques. Simple, because if you have to provide oversight, you have to conduct the meetings. Whether it's a health check meeting, audit meeting, phase gate review meeting, these are all the techniques to provide oversight. The sponsor will provide oversight to portfolio manager. PMO will provide oversight to portfolio manager in a different meeting which will be conducted in the portfolio life cycle. Portfolio manager will provide oversight to portfolio component by conducting very many meetings related to component governance meeting. So friends, these are the 16 processes in the portfolio management. And I hope now you don't have to memorize some input output. I hope you got a better understanding about this, all the tools and techniques and the framework of portfolio management. This is what I have in this quick review session and quick tips and tricks session, which I have given throughout this, this session. And I hope you liked, friends, this session. You liked it. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this session, if it helped you to, brush up your concepts, and I hope it gave you confidence. Any question, friends? You can raise your hand if you have any questions, so I can answer your question. But one thing I would like to tell you, friends, go with confidence in your exam. Follow this approach. Create your own notes. Even today, don't open any book. If you have exam tomorrow, don't open any book. Just create a mind map. Mind map of 16 processes. Mind map of portfolio life cycle. And even if you don't create tools and technique, absolutely fine mind map. But if you can, go ahead and do it. Create a mind map of technique that to perform specific technique, capability analysis, capacity analysis. What activities you're going to perform as part of that tool and technique. Create a mind map for, the content of strategic plan, the content of charter. That's the way you will do in 1 or 2 days before the exam. Remember one thing, friends, you are a champion portfolio manager. You are not going to fail. That's what it, because I know you personally. You're going to clear the exam, and don't even look into the outcome of this certification. You have learned in this journey. You have improved as a portfolio manager. Success is not defined by pass or fail or an end result. Success is defined by how much improved you have throughout this journey of certification. I hope you have the same matrix for measuring the success, not by pass and fail. That's not the right matrix. So I'll leave you here, friends. If you do not have any question, wish you all the best. Thank you for being here today, and I'm available for your support even after this meeting. Reach out to me. Enjoy your certification journey. All the best. Thank you.
Kailash, just upload this video in LMS, please, so that we can just listen to it once again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Mrinil. Thank you, Ravindra.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Kailash.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.